Good morning, Booktube. I would like to do a Friday wrap-up reading post here, and I haven't done much of these. Maybe I haven't done any of them. I know I do a lot of book hauls, and I would like to talk more about the books that I actually do read and what I am reading on a typical basis. So let's just jump into it. One of the main reads for this month is The Last Picture Show by Larry McMurtry. This is being read. This is the group read for Randy Ray's Lone Star Book Club, Randy Ray at the Literate Texan. And this is actually the first month that I'm following along and participating in the Voxer group. And I am enjoying this book. It was written in 1966, and I had not read anything by Larry McMurtry before. And but the book, even though it's written in the mid 1960s, it's set in the early 1950s in a small, kind of dying, dusty little Texas town. And the story centers around three main characters. There's two boys, Sonny and Dwayne, who are best friends, and a girl named JC, who is Dwayne's girlfriend for much of the book. And there's a lot. McMurtry has a very, I think, kind of simple but impactful way of writing. And so this book sort of goes through the Sonny and Dwayne's and JC's senior year and into the summer after they have graduated. And I'm nearing the end of this book, probably about 8 or 9 chapters, but I've been reading about a chapter or two a day. So this has been kind of one of my more consistent reads that I've been reading along through the month of June, and of course I've been keeping up daily this week. Along with that, or almost along with that, was I picked up the book Empire Falls by Richard Russo. This was the Lone Star Book Club's book from last month, a month late in getting to it, and I've never read anything by Richard Russo. This is somewhat of a similar story. Obviously, it's a much more recent book that is set in Maine, and this book was written in 2001, looks like. And this is also about a small dying town, only this one in New England. The main character is, his name's Miles, and he is a college dropout who is now in his early 40s, and he runs one of the only functioning businesses left in the town of Empire Falls, which happens to be a diner. And now I'm sort of recognizing that a fair amount of the activity in The Last Picture Show also centers around a diner. So maybe there's something to that. And so this has been an interesting read too. And so I've been chipping away at this, couple chapters a day, and then I might not read it for a few days. But making some decent progress in this, but I don't know. I'm almost, maybe not quite halfway through with that, but I've been reading that on a fairly regular basis. Now I'm going to turn to some books that I have just sort of jumped into. I have been doing my share of book hauls for the last few weeks, and I guess I'm kind of going through a couple things that have kind of impacted my reading recently and my book buying, and one of those is kind of falling in love again with the old mass market paperbacks, and that's what this book is. This is by Stephen King. It's called Bag of Bones, and this I think is from 1998, so late 90s, and it's I think it's one of the more unusual Stephen King novels. I think there's a there's a supernatural element to it, but it's more about this man, Mike Noonan, who's an author, and his wife recently died very suddenly. She was only, they were only like in their 40s, and they don't have any kids, and so this book is about this man sort of, beginning to come to terms with the loss of his wife, and then he eventually will get involved in the life of another woman, and it involves a child custody issue. I used to read a lot of Stephen King when I was younger, and kind of dropped off from reading him maybe, once I got into my 30s, and this was probably one of the last books of his that I bought. That whenever he would come out with new books, I would buy them, and then there was a certain point where I kind of stopped doing that. But I didn't have this book anymore, and I had been kind of thinking about it, and I was going to borrow it from the library, and then when I went to the used bookstore, this book happened to be on the dollar pile, and so I thought that was really fortuitous. So I just snapped it up along with a bunch of other books that were in the dollar bin. But this is Stephen King's Bag of Bones, and so I've read a little bit of that this week. Also from my latest book haul is this book. This is Patricia Cornwell's The Body Farm. I guess another mass market paperback that is dated 1994, 1995. I used to have a copy of this. Kind of a lot of with my mysteries, mass market paperbacks. I unhauled them, got rid of them years ago, and then I'll get an itch to read them again, and got this at the used bookstore. And I actually have read quite a bit of this story, maybe about a third of the way through. She's a pretty good writer. She's a pretty quick read. I can sit down and bang out a good 100 pages of her books in an afternoon. And so the main character in all of Patricia Cornwell's books is a woman by the name of Kay Scarpetta, who is I think she's a forensic pathologist who originally she works for either the city of Richmond or the state of Virginia, and at some point becomes a consultant with the FBI, so she gets involved in a lot of FBI cases, and she has a niece who has just joined the FBI, and this particular case is about the kidnapping and death of a young girl, and they think they know who the criminal is who did it, but there's some mixed evidence. And the body farm itself is a reference to actually what I think is a real life. There actually is like a real life body farm where there are criminologists that study body decay and the effect of different things that affect the body in death, be they maggots or other things, and so they can derive information from that to help solve crimes. So that's what this book is. Kind of another kind of nostalgia read. And I've also noticed that I tend to get back into mysteries about this time of year. Like last year I read a lot of Michael Connelly. So this is the time of year I kind of get into mysteries and genre fiction. So change of pace here. Some nonfiction. This is The Sun Rising, King James I and the Dawn of a Global Britain, 1603 to 1625. Those are the years of the reign of King James after Elizabeth died. The author is Anna Whitelock. I am not familiar with her books, but this is got this from the library, borrowing this from the library. It is I think a brand new book. It's a new release anyway, written 2025. And kind of alongside this, there's another book on King James that's more, I think, a straight biography, and I might borrow that at some point. This is more a book about how the British Empire kind of grew and began to trade and colonize during the reign of King James. And so I've read a few chapters of this book this week, and I don't normally get nonfiction books from the library for whatever reason. Maybe I just don't think I'm going to read them very fast, but just trying to chip off a chapter or two of this book each day. Again, this is The Sun Rising, King James I and the Dawn of a Global Britain, 1603 to 1625, by Anna Whitelock. The chapters are pretty short, and it's pretty good read so far. All right, and this is looking ahead to Jane Austen July. The group read for Jane Austen July is Mansfield Park. I have been working through the Jane Austen canon in the last few months. I read Sense and Sensibility, which I loved, and I did a video on that a little while back. And I've listened to Pride and Prejudice, and I just finished listening to Emma. And I enjoyed both of those books, but I really liked Sense and Sensibility a lot more. Maybe it's because I read it rather than listened to it. Next month is Jane Austen July, but also for Randy Ray's Seriously Well-Read Book Club, we're reading Pride and Prejudice. So even though I just got done listening to that, I think I'm going to reread that or read it after having listened to it. And so I'm looking forward to our discussions on that and what, if anything, new I sort of take from it. But anyway, just finished reading Emma, and not too long ago I got this book. Wasn't really the version. This is the Signet Classic, another mass market paperback. Wasn't really the version I guess the version I was hoped to find. I think eventually I'd like to get a lot of my classics in the Oxford World Classic version. But anyway, I did read the introduction to this book. I don't know anything about this story. I think it's not one of Jane Austen's more popular novels, and so I read the introduction. I did start listening to a little bit on audio, but I think I'm gonna shut off the audio and not read any more of this book until we get to Jane Austen July. But I was, just having finished Emma, I was feeling a little itchy about getting into this book and seeing what it was like. But again, this is Jane Austen's Mansfield Park. This was either the third or fourth book that was published in her lifetime. I thought the first book that she had published was Sense and Sensibility. The second one was Pride and Prejudice. I thought the third book that was published was Emma, but according to the introduction to this book, Mansfield Park was actually the third work of hers that was published, and then it was Emma. So whichever the case is, I'll be reading Mansfield Park for Jane Austen July next month, and also rereading Pride and Prejudice for Randy Ray's Seriously Well-Read Book Club. And back to some real old nostalgia. And this is actually a magazine. This is Alfred Hitchcock's Mystery Magazine. This particular issue is dated August 13th, 1980, and I would have been 13 years old in August of 1980. And so this was around the time, there was a couple years where I had read several of these magazines, and obviously I didn't have them anymore, so I went hunting around for these on the internet and on eBay, and one of the reasons I remember these magazines and these stories is I think I got into them when my family would travel to Michigan every summer to see my stepfather's family. And I actually kind of really enjoyed those trips. And my grandmother lived in a sleepy little town in southern Michigan called Bronson. And there was like a little five and dime store there. And I would walk to that store and buy things. And I think that that's where I first became acquainted with these magazines. And anyway, I've been thinking about these magazines for a while and it started to look around on the internet for them, but I didn't quite remember which magazines I had, and I didn't remember the names of the stories or anything like that. But I finally did remember the name of one story. The name of the story was Violet. And it's kind of an odd story. It's about a teenage girl, I guess, who runs errands for a woman. And she's pretty weird, the girl. And you know, the husband doesn't like her. And so there's kind of some friction between the wife and the husband. And anyway, so that was the story I remembered. So I ended up tracking that down and finding this magazine and realizing that this, you know, this cover did look familiar to me. So I ordered this, and I ended up ordering another Alfred Hitchcock magazine from 1981, again, where I think I recognized the cover. So, and so anyway, this was fun to get and fun to kind of read these stories again. They didn't quite hit the same way as they did when I was younger, but again, just kind of feeling a little nostalgic and happy to have a copy of this magazine and looking forward to getting the next magazine in the mail. So anyway, well, that's it. That's my weekly reading. I will try and do this a little more consistently. Let me know down in the comments what you're reading this week or this month. If you've got any group reads going, or if you're doing any booktube events and follow-alongs. But anyway, I thank you for watching, and I'll be back soon with another video. Thanks. Bye.